share a few words that, like I usually do when we do the public menorah lighting. Now, I know you guys are really switched on. How do I know that? Well, because you're here at Afikomen, right, celebrating Hanukkah. So I know that you know that there's a miracle that has to do with the oil, right? The oil that was found in the defiled, dirty temple, and they found this one jug of oil that lasted for how long? You see, I knew you guys were all geniuses. It was great. And I know that you know that there's also, right, the celebration of this great military victory against the oppressive Hellenistic Syrian army and this enemy that wanted to not just annihilate us in a physical way, but more significantly wanted to annihilate us in a spiritual way. They wanted to convince us that our faith and that our tradition was no longer relevant or valid. And they wanted us to become, you know, not who we are, assimilated, right? And we know about that. But one thing I wanted to point out to you that you may not have been that aware of is who's a real superstar of Hanukkah that really turned the whole tide of events that allowed for this military victory to take place, which then allowed for the Jews to go back into the ancient temple that had been defiled and find that oil jug. It was actually the story of Yehudit, a Maccabeah, right?
Yeah.
Yehudit was the sister of Matityahu, who was the father of Judah Maccabee and the other four brothers. And she was a widow, and she was in this small town that was near Jerusalem, and the people of that town were about to capitulate to the enemy because they felt they were saying, God, if you save us immediately, well then we'll recognize that you're the true power. But you know, if you're not going to come immediately, then really it's better for us to be assimilated and alive than meet certain death. Well, this woman, Yehudit, was furious about that. And she said, that's ridiculous. That's not what it means to be a Jew. That's not what it means to hold dear to your ancestral tradition. And she devised a plan that was extremely dangerous. And she allowed herself to become familiar with Holofernes, who was the leader of the Syrian Greek army at the time. And they had this huge encampment outside of Jerusalem. And she allowed herself to become, you know, close to him, so much so that her comings and goings from his camp were not suspicious any longer. And she had this scheme where one evening she came to him, and she was already accustomed to being in the camp, so nobody took any notice. She brought her little picnic basket with some cheese and some wine, and she fed Holofernes, and he got drunk and fell asleep. And she took his sword while he was sleeping, and she cut off his head. And she quietly put the head in her basket, waited until the time when she was usually leaving, and just, right, unsuspectedly just left his camp, and she went to Jerusalem. When she was at the gates of Jerusalem, she showed the Jewish guards the head of the enemy, and they put the head on the wall, the outside wall. And in the morning, when the soldiers woke up and they went to go get their general, they found his headless body in the tent, and they panicked. They had no idea how this could have happened. There must have been some demonic force or some creature that was going to get them, and they were so afraid that they immediately abandoned their encampment and all of their weapons and all of their supplies, and they made it to the shore, and they took the first boat out. And this allowed the Jews to be victorious in the conquest, in this fight against this Hellenistic force of this Syrian army. So this woman, Yehudit HaMaccabeah, was really the quiet heroine, the real hero of this story that really turned the whole events around. And I just want to say this story, this is so fascinating to me, that it's in the, there's a number of books that were not canonized as part of the Tanakh, as part of the Hebrew Bible. And those books are collected in the Apocrypha. Apocrypha is a Greek word which means those things that were not part of the canonized text, or a little bit of the other texts, other books. So her story is in one of these books, the Book of the Maccabees. But I tell this story, and I'm so fascinated by this story because I look around in the times that we're living in now, and we want to find heroes, right? We want to find the miracle from God. We want to have, like, beam me up, Scotty. This is so crazy what we're going through, right? Pandemics, the icebergs are melting, the atmosphere is deteriorating, the coral reefs are dying, the oceans are heating up. It's terrible. How can we turn these terrible situations around? How do we really find the wherewithal to go on from day to day? And then I love the story of Yehudit because, in a sense, like, this is an ordinary person. This is not a military genius. This is not a queen of a whole nation of people. This is one woman who, with her own intellect and her own seichel, her own, capacity for seeing the bigger picture and knowing what was at stake and then taking action, is something that really inspires me. And I wanted to share this story with you because I hope it inspires you. That Hanukkah, the Jewish holidays were not written in the Torah and in the Talmud for kids, right? A lot of people, a lot of our customers come in here and they have the understanding, maybe you didn't get much more than a 12-year-old education in Judaism as a kid, which is quite typical for most of us living. It was certainly my story. I didn't become more informed about Judaism until I was 19 or 20. Other than that, I was educated, in a Reform congregation up until my bar mitzvah. That's about all that I knew. But our culture and our tradition is so rich for adults, for grown-ups, and all of these holidays and all of these rituals are packed full of different layers of meaning and different layers of inspiration. If we just go in there and find, a little explanation, a little commentary, a little ritual that I've never done before, that I'm going to extend myself to do. Maybe it's Hanukkah candles. Maybe it's Shabbat. Maybe it's another giving of tzedakah, of righteous giving, to support those in need or in good, worthy causes for society. All of these things are the things that are the bedrock of our tradition. And so I want to just hope that you're inspired from this celebration today and from the story of Yehudit, that you yourself could be that heroine. You yourself could be the heroine in your own life, for your own self, or in your own family. Maybe, you had ancestor relatives that escaped horrible situations, whether that was in Eastern Europe or whether that was in the Middle East, in any of the Arab countries that expelled our people. 900,000 Jews were expelled in 1948 from all the Arab countries. A lot of people don't talk about that or know about that because we're very Ashkenaz-centric. We tend to focus on the European story, and we don't really think about that much the Jews that came from Syria and from Iran and Iraq and Lebanon and Tunisia and Morocco and Egypt and Yemen and Ethiopia, all of these other places, right, where Jews have lived for 1,000 years or 2,000 years, who were also expelled and experienced incredible hardship and discrimination and persecution in those countries as well. It's not just a European story, it's our collective story from wherever we've come. And now we're here, and now we're doing this act of illuminating, and we're doing it specifically in the darkness because that's what we do. We as Jews, we illuminate the world that we're in, and the world right now is a very dark place. So I want to bless us all that we take our light that we possess as individuals, light a candle, help somebody else light a candle, and bring that light out into the world and illuminate this world and spread the light of joy, spread the light of righteousness, and spread the light of holiness into the world to eliminate some of the darkness that we're all experiencing on one level or another. And I want to wish you all a happy Hanukkah.
Happy
and I want to
Hanukkah.
thank you all for
Amen.
coming to support Afikomen as a store, but also to support Afikomen as part of your community. This is you. We're here for you. You know, we do this for you, and we really mean that. And it gives us such a great sense of connection and purpose that we can come and help you have the things that you need to live your Jewish life, whatever that is. And we have absolutely no judgment. We just are here to help you feel good about being who you are. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Happy Hanukkah. If you didn't get a donut, if you have a jelly donut, if you have some transactions that you want to finalize over here in the store, we'll be here for another little while to help you do that as well.
Happy
So happy Hanukkah. Thank you so much.